Hello and welcome everyone. I am Andrew Tropin and I am free and open source software developer, author of Guix Home and RD projects. On this stream series we usually talk about development tools and practices, share part of my usual workday, and travel towards a sustainable ethical business. On the previous stream we talked about legal entities, why and how you would like to create them, and also we implemented a way to run tests for the projects using command line interface and make files. Today we will have a brief talk about contracts, and after that we will try to wrap around Surface 64 to make it possible to separate two stages. First one is defining or evaluating tests, and the second one is actually executing those tests. It will be necessary for future tooling development to make it easier to run a particular test or to run failed tests and so on. Hello Anton, hello Antares. I know that you are writing to both chats, but I will still greet both of you. I see some messages in IRC that I didn't reply yet, but I will reply them after stream. They probably not related to the topic of the current stream, so I will do it after. Talking about contracts and NDAs, no matter what you do, creating your own business, just doing some freelance work or becoming an employee of some company, you will sign a contract or a few of them, including NDAs and maybe some other papers. NDA is non-disclosure agreement, which is basically another type of contracts, which usually just restricts you and doesn't give you much benefit. First idea is to read every contract carefully, because in most cases people are not interested in providing benefits to you. And it's especially true for big companies. They try to make their business profitable and secure, so they can introduce a lot of restrictions, some edge cases to the contract, and they don't care too much about making you benefit. So in this case, you will need to define what you want and tell them in a matter of notes to the contract they provided to you, or by creating your own version of contract, or in some other way. Of course, if you do some contract work or make a contract with some faithful person, it's still need to read it carefully, because you could misunderstand each other or something like this, and it will be better to revisit what is written in the document and make adjustments or comments on it, and be sure that you are all at the same point. When you get a contract which contains some information that some points that are unclear to you, don't hesitate and just ask, and people will likely explain you what this point mean, and you will be able to either accept it or to ask to change it or adjust it somehow. Of course, after you read the contract, you can propose the changes. It's maybe not obvious when you didn't make a lot of contracts, when you didn't sign signed a lot of papers, but actually it's quite common practice. Even if this contract is from big corporation which has some default templates for contracts, you still can change it and submit updated version to the company and ask them to revisit it and to sign it. So in any case, you can adjust the contract, and if you don't have such option, if the other side decline your changes, or they say that you can't change the contract, it's a default one, and so on, it's probably not a good party to have a business with. And of course, consult with lawyer, because big contracts can be quite tricky, and even if you read and find it satisfying, you can find yourself in the situation which harms your life. So in some cases it's a very good idea to ask a professional to revisit the contract and to explain everything to you. Actually, it's not necessary to hire a lawyer for this task. You can ask the other side to provide a lawyer and ask him to explain all the points. But it may be not the best solution, because this lawyer can be somehow biased. So anyway, it's a good idea to work with professional when you making big contracts. And here I have an article, a link to the article, which says contracts you should never sign. It's about usual way people work in industry as employees, and here a bunch of points that you would like to pay attention to when you signing contracts. And also there are a few links on older articles about NDAs and contracts, which also provide some interesting ideas and interesting insights, which can help to prevent some consequences, unwanted consequences of signing up not very good contract. And especially the one clause that I never saw in my contracts, but I would say it's quite harmful for both company and the employee, is non-compete agreement. It's when you can't work for competing companies for 1 year or next few months or something like that, which looks a little strange to me for many various reasons, but it still exists and it's better to know about it. Anyway, this was a general recommendation on contracts and NDAs. Probably for some of you it's very obvious, but I know that it's not obvious for all people. That is why I just decided to remind one more time about this point. Especially it's helpful for young people who are only starting their careers and so on. And of course I will need to sign some contracts and NDAs during my future work, and that is why I revisited those articles and read some material to make a more informed decisions and to be more prepared for working on those contracts and proposing changes, and maybe sometimes finding a better options for myself or my projects. Actually, one more point that I would like to make about contracts. There is a negotiation phase usually involved in hiring or employment or working with other parties. And usually people think about negotiation as something which says how much money you will get for the job. But in reality, negotiation starts when you start discussing the contract and discuss which parts of the contract you would like to change and so on. For example, you can't negotiate a salary at some point or amount of money you will get for the work because the other party doesn't have more money than they can propose to you. And it doesn't matter how good you are at negotiation, you won't get more money, but you can get other benefits. For example, you can ask this person to make all the work licensed under GPL license and be available for a wide audience. And making such adjustments to the contracts is also a negotiation, and it may bring much more benefit than the getting more money from this party. That is why don't forget that negotiation is not only about money, but also about conditions you will work on. Okay, I would say that's it about contracts and NDAs for today. Later, maybe when I will be writing an actual contracts or NDAs, I will make some examples and will show you what was changed during negotiation process and so on. And let's do our usual works. For the last few days and last few streams, we were working on tests and test infrastructure for RD project. And today we will continue to work on it. As you can see, this usually small task as introduction of testing framework to the project takes a lot of time for RD because of various reasons, but still not the easiest task I have ever had in RD project. But I think we already achieved quite good results. We can launch tests from makefiles, we can launch tests from REPL, and it's already works, I would say, good enough and already manageable. We can stop here and continue our usual work and use this testing framework, but I still miss a few things that I would like to have, at least a few things, but they're important to my usual workflow and I would like to have them. The first one is rerun failing tests. For example, I wrote some tests, I wrote some code, and we already can run tests for the whole project. And after we got a report with a few fails, I would like to save time and execute only failed tests. And with current implementation, it's not possible. We can launch tests for model, which partially works because it reduces the amount of tests that we will need to execute, but still it can be quite time expensive and can take too much time to evaluate the whole test model for checking only one assertion that is failing right now. So I would like to have rerun failing tests functionality, and the second one is just run a particular test. And it's also not really possible. I mean, it's possible by evaluating a region where we have asserts that we would like to rerun, but it's not satisfying and not easy to use. That is why I would like to somehow implement them, and for this feature we would need to separate two phases of test execution. And first phase will be a definition of test or evaluation phase, when we load a model and get a list of tests but doesn't execute them. And the second phase is actually executing them. If we can split those two phases, this way we will be able to execute a particular test or a set of tests or subset of tests, including just only failed tests. And here we have two options. We can define and make another testing framework, a whole separate entity, or we can build upon already existing Surfy 64. And it's a good question, which one is better, which way is better. We can pick both, but more productive will be to just wrapping around Surfy 64. So we already have something, we already have a few tests, we have a test runner, we have a code for running tests for the whole project, and we can utilize it and just add some functionality by wrapping Surfy 64. And I think we will pick this way to make our work more iterative. And later, if we decide that we are not satisfied with Surfy 64, Surfy test runners or something else, we will just change the underlying implementation of test groups and test asserts and provide our own non-Surfy 64 compatible or something like that. So every time we will have a working solution at the moment, and the process will be more iterative, and we will be able to check every time if everything still works. If we design our framework from the ground up, it will take much more time, and it will longer the feedback loop, and we will know if this framework works or not, what downsides of it and benefits of it, only after we made a first working version. And it can take a lot of time, just days or maybe even weeks. That is why we will take right now something already working and we'll improve on it. Okay, I had something here. I read some materials finding scheme frameworks for testing, but didn't found something really useful yet. So we will just invent our wheels. Let's go to RD project and open our test runner model. We have our test runner. We have our function for running project tests. Of course, it won't be available here because it's a different namespace. So we need to switch model Whoops. And here we can run project tests. And we get error, no code for model, RD tests store. What we have in store? Let me see. Okay, we evaluated the namespace. Oh. How this thing happened? Very interesting. How I got to RD serializers init test namespace. I was in RD test runners, and at some point the namespace was changed. Very, very strange. Okay, let's run it one more time. No code for model RD test store. And we again in RD serializers init test. What happens here? Okay, let's see where let's restart our REPL to make sure nothing strange present in our runtime. Test runners, evaluate namespace, go to REPL, run project tests, no code for module RD test store. Wow. Very interesting. And we again in RD serializers init tests. One more time. And let's see the backtrace. RD test store. It is here and it evaluates successfully. And the path is correct. RD tests store. Okay. RD serialize ini test. Let's see. What we have here. It's evaluated. Okay, let's try to reproduce it with a smaller scope. We can launch this one. We can launch this one. And now let's, oops. Let's try to primitive load car or cedar of test files. Huh? What if hmm. It says no code for model, RD serializers Lisp. And I'm not sure why it happens. Will something be different if we use load instead of primitive load? No code for model RD serializers Lisp. Okay, pam pam. Why it happens? I'm for sure don't really know how load works and how model system in guile constructed. So maybe I forget to do something. And if we use instead of load, use models RD serializers init test. Cool. Cool. With use models it works. What else similar to use models we have? It seems when I use load, it ignores the exports defined in define model. Okay, it doesn't say anything about how it actually works. We can open Guile source code and we can search for define model here. Oh, actually we can see how it implements tests. It has its own testing framework, I guess. Uh, okay, it seems as a whole testing framework declared here. Maybe we can learn something from it. But okay, let's visit it in more details later. And now we will focus on what we have already. Okay, define model. Model and a lot of stuff here. Okay, here we have a lot of tests for model related API. And it doesn't export anything to make tests for model related stuff. That means it's probably resides in some very generic file. Like this one. The actual implementation is probably in the different file. But at least now I know that guile loading process starts from boot9 file. And that is why it's a very usual case when you get a stack trace which points to boot9. Set current model to guile. Here we have R5RS, which probably just a compatibility for this model. Not much stuff here. It's only syntax roles, case, cont, and that's it. That means most of R5RS is implemented in guile model, which actually defined by boot. By boot 9. Okay, also we have R6RS. Which have not that much stuff, but something. If you're not familiar with RNRS, it's basically a report, a scientific paper, which describes the state of scheme and the three primary RNRS reports right now, 5th, 6th, and 7th. 5th is pretty small, stable, and implemented by almost all schema implementations. The 6th one is not so widely adopted, and not many schema implementations have it. And 7th is most recent one, which is which has two parts, small and large. Small one is targeted for cases when you want to implement the whole specification but don't want to throw out some really hard to implement features. And the big one contains features that are needed for production work, for making a real world applications. So the first part, R7RS small, is already well defined and finished, but the bigger part is not yet complete as far as I know. I would also like to see the implementation of load function. Do we have it here? Oh, it's load macro. How it works. syntax source. What is syntax source? Maybe let's run the REPL and add guile to it. Huh. Source. Let's try to actually use it. We have test files and we have this one. What? Unbound variable define. What the heck? How it happened? Oh, very interesting. Okay. We have Lisp test scm file here. Define Lisp test. And now let's see what we get here. Wrong type in position 1, expecting syntax object. Okay, that's mean that syntax source okay, it says that a model that uses load is not declarative. That means we probably don't want to use model load. I'm curious. Is it interesting to see how I struggle with guile scheme and trying to figure out how parts of it works? Actually, it seems that scheme is quite complex language, and not only complex but also complicated, and it's not really easy to figure out how things work here, how actual implementation of scheme language works. And probably with more knowledge I would do those tasks much easier, but it still looks like, you know, not very simple language. Even the amount of the source code of all those libraries quite big and not really easy to navigate through. A lot of hacks and workarounds applied here and there even make it harder. Make it even harder. What is load in vicinity? Let's go back again to guix and guix SCM, and we'll see what we have here. Okay, we have a top level model called RD, which probably the only thing that loaded. And we need to manually call model use to make other nested models available. Or is it just exports variable defined in public models? Let's check it. What the heck? White complaints about RD packages. How does it happen? White. How did it found guix as CM and decided that it is a substitution for guix? Okay, let's see guix as SCM. It has RD packages. Okay, and it has cache here, but you know, I don't really need this. Let's delete it. Delete file. Yes. Compilation of failed. Why the heck you compile it? What is in oh okay. It has RD in the load path. Why? Why so? Okay, let's go back to RD shell. Cut very interesting. Let's see. List interactive. It doesn't have it. The REPL by default doesn't have this load path. What happens when I connect to it from Geyser? Geyser connect localhost and see the load path. What is this? Geyser guile load path. I'll just restart emacs and we will try to make it from the beginning. RD test runners. And here load path. That's nice. Very nice. But for what reason? Geyser adds the root of the project to the load path. I didn't ask for it. our stream becomes a debugging geyser session, I guess, not implementing test framework. Okay, it just loads some geyser models, which is okay. G load pass buffer local value. I don't know why this logic exists at all. I mean, it's okay. We have buffer local value for geyser guy load pass. Ah, okay, okay, that's right. It takes either last SCM buffer or current buffer and checks for the geyser guy load pass. And if it exists, it adds this load pass to the REPL, which is okay. Maybe I missed something. I have it commented and it should have no effect on whatever I do. Okay, I already feel tired today. I don't really enjoy the process right now, so I will uh, go and take some rest, eat some food, and when I will get more power and desire, I will come back to this task. It's a little pity that we didn't touch any of this yet, but it is what it is. And as a conclusion, I would say it's okay to make a step back and get to it later. You know, sometimes it's much better to postpone a thing and to get to it when you have more resources for it and more desire. In this way, you will be more efficient. Sometimes it happens, and maybe it's not always necessary to force you to do such tasks when you can get back to them later and be much more productive. I think that's it for today, and we'll see you soon.